You're listening to Two Mics and a Guest, a podcast of people's stories and the career pathway that led them to where they are. And now your hosts, Michael Holliday and Mike Young. Welcome everybody to Two Mics and a Guest. I am one of your mics, Michael Holliday. Joined with me is
Mike Young. And we also have our special guest with us, Sergeant Jeremy Martin. We're looking forward to having you here. Appreciate you coming.
Thanks for having me, Mike. And
I know Jeremy is a good friend of Greg English. Dr. English is our head of our school here, virtual school. I have seen Jeremy direct his band here in Tullahoma. They've been guests here at the high school and have performed a few times. I've got a band kid for a son, and there was a fantastic performance, by the way. It's been a couple of years, I guess, because of COVID, though. I'm trying to remember the last time you guys were down this way.
I'm not sure. It's we cover a 10-state area, and so just knowing where we go is always
right.
As in my job, I don't go on the road with the band all the time. I only go on the road with our concert band.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times the groups will go out and come to Tullahoma or Murfreesboro or somewhere, and I don't get to be on that trip, which kind of is a bummer because that's close to where I'm from.
Right. Yeah. Well, the performance they had the last time I saw you guys in Tullahoma was great, and it was great for my kid to see that. So we're looking forward to you being with us today. Appreciate you dropping in on us. Now, you're serving at Scott Air Force Base in Illinois, correct?
Yes, sir.
You've been in that position how long?
I've been here at Scott Air Force Base for closing in on 6 years,
okay.
But I've been in the Air Force for 21.
Well, we want to get that story from all through of how you got to where you are right now. So where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Ardmore, and I don't know if anybody, you probably have passed Ardmore on I-65 if you've ever headed towards south on I-65.
Uh-huh.
Ardmore is right on the Tennessee border and Alabama border. In fact, there's Tennessee or Ardmore, Tennessee, and Ardmore, Alabama.
That's
and
right.
It's the same town.
Wow.
But I lived on the Tennessee side, so I went to all Tennessee schools. So I went to high school at Giles County High.
Yep.
And
very familiar with them.
There back in the 20th century.
That's right, like me.
That's right. And then after that, I went to Tennessee Tech University to study music education. And after that, after finishing that degree, I don't know if you even know this, but I was the high school band director at Shelbyville High School, Central High School in Shelbyville.
Greg did tell me that, and I think that's going to be that's one of the interesting things I wanted to talk about as we move through this, because you've taken a twisty turn to get to where you are right now. Not really. I mean, you're doing music, but it's been interesting to go from high school band director and then serving in our military. I think that's a fantastic story. Now, were you may have just said it and I just completely missed it. You said Giles County, or where you grew up. Were you in band then, I'm assuming, in high school?
A funny story, as they usually are with me. I was not in band in elementary school because I went to Elkton Elementary School, K through 8, and they did not have a band program there at the time. And then I went to high school, and I actually, my mom had been in band in Ardmore, like back when she was in school. And she had said, hey, why don't you try joining the band when you go to high school? So I tried, but since I had not been in the middle school band, I couldn't join. Well, then the next year, my sophomore 10th grade year, they had a new band director, and he was making a lot of changes for the better, mostly with attitudes. He just wanted butts in seats with
right.
kids who actually wanted to be there, regardless of how well they played. So some of us were hired, so to speak, just so we could march around on the field and hold the instrument and look like the band was bigger than it was. So in the 10th grade, I started playing in the band. And then by the 12th grade, I knew that I just sort of got bit. I'd gotten bit by the band bug. There's a lot of bees. And just decided it's what I wanted to do for my career. So when I first went to college, my goal was that I wanted to go be a high school band director. So I totally followed that career path and then became a band director. Actually, I first got hired at Harris Middle School in Shelbyville. The band director there, we're in like sort of February-ish of 98 now.
Right.
The band director there had left in the middle of the year. So the middle school guy went to take over the high school job for the rest of the year. So I got hired to teach elementary music appreciation for 6th through 8th grades, which is, you see all this gray hair? That's
Yes.
that's where a lot of that came from.
Yeah.
I did giggle a little bit at the elementary school music appreciation. I just kind of, I can imagine that for you.
Well, and they rotated every 6 or 8 weeks, depending on whichever grade it was. And so that was a lot of general music. But I went there. It was suggested by one of my professors at Tennessee Tech that I go take that job because they'd be hiring a high school band director at the end of the school year. And if I was already there, it might sort of, give me the opportunity to sort of step into the job. And that's what happened. So there I went to be the high school director at Shelbyville Central High School. And I remember some of your viewers may not like this, but I'll just say that, when you're a kid and you're getting your first big job, you just usually say, yes, sir, and do whatever it takes to get the job, right?
Right.
The principal at Central, the high school fight song at Central High School in Shelbyville was Rocky Top.
That's right.
And Don Boyd, the principal, who I think went to UT, was a huge bleeds orange, right? But he said every high school in Tennessee, or at least half of them, use Rocky Top.
That's right.
If I hire you, you have to find a new fight song. And I said, okay.
That's not hard for an Alabama boy to figure out something other than Rocky Top. I don't know.
Well, the funny story is, of course, the crowd complained, they wanted to hear Rocky Top.
That's
and
right.
so I took a little heat for that. But, Don Boyd, the principal, was, we socialized that out to the people so they understood that it was.
I was going to ask, did he throw you under the bus and say it was your idea, or did he own it? That was the question.
No, he was happy to come to my defense,
Okay.
especially being that Don had been the band director at Central like about 10 years earlier. So a lot of times you don't get a former band director as your principal.
No, that's right. That's true.
It does happen, but it's not common. So yeah, he sort of protected me from the heat, so to speak. But so he said, go find anything. Well, I got hired at the end of the school year, and I was trying to figure out everything, right?
Right.
A place to live permanently, not to mention all getting the kids ready for, band camp. And this was my first real job. And so I picked this really obscure fight song. It's written by a composer named Paul Yoder, who back in the day wrote tons of I don't want to say generic, but fight songs that weren't songs from a university.
Right,
a lot of schools will play the Notre Dame fight song as their high school fight song. Well, he wrote a bunch that were not tied to a university. So I can't recall right now what the name of it was, but I remember when we got to the big rivalry game with Tullahoma High School, it just so happens that the random fight song I had chosen by Paul Yoder was also the Tullahoma High School fight song.
No way.
I had no
fantastic.
idea.
Wow.
Did
So
they keep it? I bet they didn't
No,
keep it.
the next year I switched it again, and we used the Tennessee Tech fight song.
Okay.
Not necessarily because it was near and dear to my heart, which it is and was, but Tennessee Tech is the Golden Eagles, and that's what Shelbyville is.
That's right.
Makes sense.
Yeah, a lot of school. I had to rearrange it a little bit, but in general, a lot of schools will use a fight song from a college that has the same mascot. So I figured, why not? And the principal said, yeah, that sounds great. And so we made it happen. I don't know if they still use that or not. I know they did for a while.
That's a good question.
I don't know.
We played Shelbyville the first game of this past season, and I don't know if we got to hear it very often, if you know what I'm saying. So we can't.
That's cold.
Can't tell you. Yeah.
That's all right.
Well,
so I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I enjoyed my time at Shelbyville, but when I started teaching there, I think I was 22 years old as a high school band director, and it's one thing if you go to a big program at that age and you start out as an assistant, and you sort of learn the ropes a little bit.
Yeah.
But here we go. Big wannabe competitive high school band program, Mr. 22-year-old first time teacher, have at it. Yep. And so I enjoyed it, and the kids were great, and the parents in the band booster club, they were all fantastic. But I never had any problems there. I enjoyed my time there. But there was a thing in the back of my mind where I had started getting into enjoying writing music.
Right.
And when I went to college, remember I told you I only started playing trumpet in the 10th grade. I was a trumpet.
Right.
I don't know if I mentioned trumpet
No,
earlier.
you didn't. I was going to ask you the instrument. I do see that you're the only person in the world that has played principal contrabass clarinet. We're going to get to that story too down the road. But I didn't know I didn't think you were going to be playing that as your first instrument as you joined band. So
no, I was the trumpet player because that's what my mom had been, and she still had her trumpet from back in her days, and it was still in great shape. So that was the instrument I,
right,
sort of
inherited.
Became, yeah, basically. So
now I did think it was interesting as you were talking. You talked about the band director that obviously influenced you enough to want to go do that. And again, every episode of our podcast, this has been a theme.
Every one of them
of how a teacher or someone has influenced them. A person someone can name, and it ended up heading them toward the direction.
Lighting them into that spark, lighting that spark, and getting them in. I
just think that was interesting. I wanted to point that out again.
Yeah, and I can tell you the guy's name was Steve Williams. Steve was a terrific band director, still is. He now teaches in Athens, Alabama.
Okay.
He stayed at Giles County for many years, and during that time, I'd say he was there 10, 12 years, something like that. Maybe longer, maybe 15. I don't know for sure, but he took that band from being a band that would never have even gone to a contest,
right,
to being state champions.
Wow.
And I got to be in on that from the very beginning. Now, when I was there, I graduated in '93. We were winning little small contests, but we weren't at that level,
right?
Because it takes a while to build that, not only the band and the abilities, but to build the culture.
Well, I had two of my children were soccer players, but then my youngest was in the band, and I had not experienced those band competitions until he. Obviously, Tullahoma is very competitive in that, loves doing it, and we've had a strong legacy there. But, man, it was amazing to experience those competitions the first time and what all goes into it and the student leadership and everything else.
Yeah.
And I would think, being a part of that band program, there is some crossover with just the leadership stuff you've done in the military as well, I would think. I mean, I'm not equating them, but the stuff I watch students do with that large group in a band situation was just fascinating for me to watch. And anyway, I'm curious. I think that's an interesting thing on your path as well. So anyway.
Oh, sure. There's so much you learn in band about leadership and being responsible, because, taking my Air Force thing off and putting my old band director hat on, it's true. In band, nobody rides the bench.
Right. That's right.
You're all out there on the stage or on the field. You don't take an inning out. You go, you're there. And so you have to learn to pull your weight and do the thing that you're there to do. Not to say that there aren't superstars, and then those who
that's right.
Maybe aren't quite so committed, but you still have to be responsible, and you will learn so much about responsibility from band, even just middle school band. My son, it's kind of funny, full circle. My son is 10 and he just started beginning band this year, playing the trombone. And it's such a weird place for me to be watching this from the other side, because we've already done like we sent him to school without the bell cover thing that they have to have here. And it's like I'm already the dumb parent.
Oh.
So apologies, local band director.
Well,
but yeah, so many things you learn in band that apply to life, and not just learning which position B flat is in.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I found out. I mean, I just as a band parent, and I was helped the pit crew get in place for the stuff and all of that. It was just fascinating to watch. But the thing about what you're talking about is about nobody rides the bench. Everybody's out there. And I watched it as you pull up at a band competition and you see the students they have different responsibilities, and they lay it out there and they put the show on the field, and it's a fascinating thing. So now you were at Shelbyville for how long?
I was there for about 2.5 years. So
Okay.
I wasn't really, I was just a blip on the radar in their history. But um, when I was at Tennessee Tech, as I mentioned earlier, I started trumpet so late
Right.
in life. When I got there, I did okay playing in the trumpet studio, as a
Right.
music ed major, doing my thing. I was never going to be the world's greatest trumpet player, and I already knew that. Just because I got started so late in life, and
Right.
that's not an excuse; it's just a reality.
No, that's true.
I was in a trumpet studio with people who were all terrific friends, and nobody was like mean or snobby or anything, but they were all way better than me. They had all been playing since fifth or sixth grade, and here I am. I've been playing for like 3 years by the time I come to college.
Right.
And so I like to say, and music friends will know what this means. I like to say I was principal last chair. So so while I was there, I had to do an arranging assignment for our trumpet ensemble. We all had to, in the spring, we all had to arrange some little thing for the trumpet ensemble. And I did a project. I arranged a John Williams Olympic tune for us to play, and we even performed it on a concert. And so I got the writing bug. And so I started getting into that, and nobody else in the studio, or even really the department, was the music department. None of the other students were doing a lot of writing. They were all, doing great at playing their clarinet or their trombone or whatever, but nobody was really taking to writing. So I did, and I started wanting to learn more about how to voice chords and how to do all the nerdy composer stuff. And so I started writing all these arrangements for our trumpet ensemble. And so the director of the trumpet studio, Charlie Decker, he would program them. He didn't program all of them, and sometimes that's a hard lesson to learn, that you can put a lot of energy into a product and it might still not be great.
That's right.
Yep.
It's not the first, or it was the first time, but certainly not the last time I've had that happen. And so once I got out into teaching, and I was writing a lot of music for my students, and I would have friends who would ask me to write music for their bands, and then I would have people telling me, eventually after a year or two of when I was teaching, I would have friends or former professors like Charlie Decker who would send me these notices about Air Force bands or whatever military band. They had a vacancy opening for an arranger. And while I was teaching, I decided to throw my hat in the ring for one of those positions. And lo and behold, they accepted me. And so I only accepted the job under the premise that they had to wait for me to finish the school year.
Right.
Because I saw what happened when I came to Shelbyville, and they had been left hanging in the middle of a school year. And I didn't want to do that to the kids because I loved them to death. I was also, side note, the amount of stress that a band director endures is ludicrous, especially a single band director who is hitting the Arby's drive-through on the way home every night. I had to make a lifestyle change because my health was suffering. And so this was a way for me to do that. I had to drop a lot of weight.
Right.
And so I did that in a healthy way. And then I went off to basic training that summer.
Now, where's the Air Force basic? Where did you?
It's at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio.
Okay. That's right.
So find the hottest place on earth.
Exactly. I'm thinking South Texas. That's not where I want to be.
No, I think Arizona beats it as far as like where it gets hotter in
my younger brother lived in Divine, Texas for a while, which is below San Antonio there, and I visited there a couple of times and don't want to live there. I'm just saying. And I can't imagine doing basic training there.
Right. My assignment prior to coming here to Illinois, I was in San Antonio for 5 years.
Okay.
And
it's a great town, but I'm talking about the weather.
Sure.
I love San Antonio.
Yeah. I did learn living there. It's not the same heat we have in the South. Well, Texas considers themselves to be the South, and I don't want to get into an argument with anybody, but we'll let them consider themselves the South if they want to. But I mean like the Southeast,
right?
Where we have humidity, because the heat in San Antonio is very dry.
It's
really not quite as bad.
I did a graduate program in Fort Worth, Texas for a while. The same thing. I worked for the school. I was in maintenance at that time, working for the school. I was working as I went through school. And it is a dry heat. And when your skin starts cracking and it's 100 degrees, it's,
Yeah.
Right.
You don't know you're dehydrated as much in dry heat as you do
just keep
the
on
humid.
doing
Yeah.
it.
No.
But PT was a different thing than me driving the dump truck around the campus, I'm sure.
Sure. Yeah. I can remember in basic training, you'd go outside. We would do all of our PT crazy early in the morning, so we wouldn't be out there in the trying to do that in the crazy heat, and then sometimes it'd make you go out and do it anyway, just because they wanted to, I guess.
Right.
But that when that was over, I went to the assignment, which was at Travis Air Force Base in California in the Bay Area.
It's a good change.
What's that?
That was a good change, huh? From the weather-wise.
It was. Well, yeah, weather-wise and everything else-wise, because I had been out of the South to visit places, but never to live, and so it took a while to sort of adapt to being out there. I used to have a much thicker Southern accent than I do now. 20 years of not living in the South has sort of calmed it down a little bit, unless I talk to my granny on the phone.
That's
who's
right.
94.
It'll pull it out of you.
That's right. And so she will make me lapse right back into it. And when we go home to visit, it comes out again.
I find it fascinating. Well, go ahead. I didn't want to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I think it's fascinating. A lot of folks think about, obviously, we appreciate military service and everything else, but I don't know that a lot of folks would have thought you're staff composer and arranger, and think about some of the opportunities that are available in the military. It's really diverse of how you can serve and the roles you can play. I think that's interesting that's what brought you to military service as well.
It was. I think I can't remember the exact count. I think it was like 220 something different jobs you can do in the military.
Wow.
And mine just happens to be one of them, the Air Force Band career field. And we consider ourselves one job, even though my job in the unit, what we call a specialty code, is as the staff arranger and composer. But when I went out to California, I was fresh out of basic training, still had the back then the shaved head haircut, the totally shaved head, not just the partially one. And got into getting used to being a member of the Air Force. And, in the bands, we're still very much a part of the Air Force.
Right.
And you still have to do all the things. You salute the officers and follow the chain of command and do your PT test every year and get your dental checkup on time and all of those things that you have to do. And because of my years of being in band, as well as being a high school band director, I already had a few things in place that helped me be successful in that.
Right.
Now, when I got to the band unit at Travis, they're called the Air Force Band of the Golden West. You're in a unit full of people just like you are. We're all people who went to college and got music degrees, either to go teach or to go perform. And we all most of us, I should say, joined the Air Force to be in the band program. So you're amongst like-minded sort of people there, which makes it a pleasure to deal with.
Yeah, professional musicians. That's it's got to make your job a little bit easier because that their background is well taught in music theory and everything that goes along with that.
Now, I had a source that said, though, you speak Farsi. Is that right? Or did I say that correctly? Farsi,
yes. So when I was there at Travis, I had a good friend who he is from Iran. He was a security forces member, so he's one of the guys you'd show your ID to when you came to the gate. And I was young single airman, and he was young single airman, and we were all hanging, buddies hanging out on the weekend and doing things. But his family all lived in San Jose, which is about an hour and change away from the base. So when on the weekend when we're not working or something, and we want to go somewhere and not be in Fairfield, California.
Need some home cooking.
Right. We would go down there and spend time and just at his house with his family. And he had four other brothers and his mom and dad. And so I would just go down there and visit and stay, and they became like my little West Coast family.
That's great.
And my friend Pete was the youngest of the five, so he didn't speak Farsi all that well, even though he does. He's gotten better over the years. But while I was there, I just decided I was going to learn some, because they spoke Farsi and English at home, and they would only speak English when I was around because they didn't want to be rude.
Yeah.
Right.
But then you'd walk into a room and there's his mom and dad in there speaking Farsi. I just wanted to learn some.
Yeah.
And so I learned some of that, and that was a lot of fun.
I have a very similar
Tennessee to learn Farsi.
I have a very similar situation. My next door neighbor growing up as kids, we grew up all the way through elementary, middle school, and they were from Turkey. And him and his mom, his dad was from here. His dad was in the CIA and was stationed over there. I don't know, way back in the 70s probably. But anyways, they speak Arabic. And when I would go over there, him and his mom would speak Arabic. And then every so often I would ask about certain words and how to say certain things. But I've lost it all by now. But
Got to use it.
Yeah, but learning that and learning some of another language at a young age was pretty exciting.
Yeah, it was very interesting, and not a language you're going to hear a lot,
No.
when you come home to Tennessee.
Yeah.
But in the Bay Area of California, there's a large Persian population, a large people who speak that language, and it was always fun. We'd go maybe to a Persian restaurant, and I would order in Farsi. And here's this little white kid with a redneck accent, and speaking Farsi, and they would sort of like raise an eyebrow and they'd be all surprised, but they love it.
I would love to hear Farsi in an Alabama accent. Farsi in an Alabama accent is fantastic.
Is there a translation for
but
y'all?
How did they respond? I mean, it had to be great when you would
They
order.
loved it.
Yeah.
They were so impressed because so few people take the time to learn their language. It's such a small, Arabic is, spoken in a whole lot of countries, but Farsi and Dari and a few of those like that, they're very small languages, and they were always so excited that
a lot of respect.
person who's not Persian has taken time to learn their language.
I thought that's cool.
What is y'all in Farsi? I mean, how do we translate some of our Southern slang to that? Yeah.
So long since I've done
No,
it.
yeah.
I can tell you in a minute if you put
no, it's fine. I just know some of our Southern slang. I don't know if we translate that to Farsi very well, but
I don't think you would.
No.
But it's interesting though. There is a very formal way of speaking, which is the way you write the words, because they taught me to write the letters and write it as well.
Oh wow.
And the way you speak though is a little bit more informal.
Everybody's got slang.
Talking to like like if you're a kid talking to a grown up, you do formal. So I'm sure y'all would translate to whatever the informal one would be.
Okay.
Everybody's got slang. That's just the way that works. So anyway, so you're in California serving out there. What's next?
So I was there for 4 years. I did my goal at first was just to do 4 years, see what this is like, and then get out and go back to teaching.
Right.
But while I was there, I sort of developed a little even more of a passion for writing music. And I decided I wanted to go to grad school and pursue a little bit more. So I started looking into ways to do that. And in the meantime, trying to apply and do this and do that, I ended up needing to re-enlist. And so I re-enlisted for another 4 years. But about a year into that, things worked out so that I could take a hiatus from active duty, go into the Air National Guard, and go to graduate school. And so now begins, what a great day to tell this story. Now began the great debate. Do I go to University of Tennessee, which I could claim in state, or do I go to that one down in Tuscaloosa, which because of where I'm from, I could also claim as an in-state?
Is there higher education in Tuscaloosa? I didn't think
easy,
there was higher
easy,
There's
Mike.
one.
I'm just checking. Okay.
And so, again, being from where I'm from, my whole family they're all either Tennessee or Alabama.
That's right.
Yep.
And so in the long run, I had to just sort of ignore that because that's fun and all, but I'm about to pay a lot of money to go get a degree somewhere. I got to go the right place. in the long run, what made the decision for me was that to do this whole thing, I had to be in the Air National Guard. And there is a guard band in Knoxville, and the commander is actually a friend of mine from Tennessee Tech, Lieutenant Colonel Roger Mills, and they're terrific. But they didn't have a spot for me at the time, so I had to be in a guard band that was in Marietta, Georgia. And even though it was really, really close, Tuscaloosa was just at the time. It wasn't that Tuscaloosa was closer to Marietta. It's the fact that most of our monthly drill was in Georgia, was in Marietta, but frequently we would do it at Warner Robins, which is in closer to South Georgia.
Right.
So in the long run, I chose Alabama specifically because it was closer for me to drive to drill. And there it was. But see,
I joke, it's a fantastic school academically. I would just assume the football team fell off the earth, but that's just me. I know.
Big LSU guy over here showing out.
Anyway.
Right.
No, it's a fantastic school. That's and I think also talking through that process, I want you to continue, but I was having conversations with students about how to pick their college and where to go. And there's all sorts of criteria that may help you pick a college. I mean, some of it is simple as that's where my family went to school, but some of it is very practical, like you just articulated, right?
Right. And it's funny how things have a way of working out. Because remember when I was saying I wanted to go the year before, but just some timing wasn't working out just right. So as it happened, the year that I did go, which was in fall of 2005, I had to take an introduction to music graduate studies or something like that,
Right.
Music 501. I remember the number. And that's where I met my wife.
Oh, fantastic.
So she was in that class. And so we met there, and then eventually we got married in Tuscaloosa right after I graduated.
Okay.
So
now I need you bring this up. You teed this up. And I've got a source again. I hear that your proposal was epic and just put us all to shame. I don't know if you feel like telling this story, but I've heard this story from a good source. Now that would be in all candor here, Jeremy's brother-in-law is a good friend of mine from back in my college days, and we just connected. We've connected the dots because of this podcast. It was kind of interesting to get that connection. But I did talk to Greg a little bit. It was epic. If you feel like telling that story, I think it was an epic story.
So my wife, Christy, she was a vocal performance major doing her master's at the University of Alabama when I went there. And she graduated in the spring of 2007. So May of 2007. And prior to that, she had to do a graduate voice recital. So she had to come out on stage and sing with a piano accompanist.
And according to Greg, they were all there, and she just killed it. She was a fantastic vocalist. He said the family was there. They said it was great.
Oh, sure. Yeah, she's terrific vocalist. So I decided that because her family was all going to be there, I wanted to make that when I would propose, because I'll spare you all the gory details, but we'll just say that Christy and Tammy, her sister, who they've all spent years working for this wedding caterer back in Mississippi, and so Christy had heard every possible wedding proposal idea on earth, and so I knew I had to do something that would not only be unique and different, but also something she wouldn't see coming. And I figured, what better time than when she's busy dealing with having to do a voice recital. Because she's not going to be worried about, why is he going to get flowers? And he sure is sneaking out a lot to go do things that are,
Right.
So not only did I decide to go up on stage and propose, I arranged a song for the a cappella men's chorus to come out on stage and sing right before I did the knee and all of that. And so she finished her last song. There's applause. She's bowing. She's doing her thing. And then I come to bring her the flowers, but I come on all the way up onto stage. And she's told me since, she's like, why are you coming up on stage? Get off the stage. It's my moment.
Mm.
And then the a cappella men's chorus come from backstage. They opened the backstage door and came out and sang their song. And then I did the deed.
Wow.
And so everybody got to be there, and it's on YouTube.
Oh, we're gonna have to pull that up later.
We're gonna definitely
I'm gonna
pull
have to
that
look
up because
no guy stands a chance now after that proposal.
No, Greg
Whoa.
said it was so well done. Obviously, all the vocalists were incredible, and that was classic. I just think that was impressive. So very good.
Well done,
We're
sir.
musicians,
Well done.
so we have a flair for the dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of my roommates was one of those guys that could just come in and play the piano, and all the girls swooned. You know, that's the thing the musicians bring. That
It was also very practical, though, because you said like all her family's there, so it's very practical.
No,
Also,
it was fantastic. It's fantastic.
And she was preoccupied, so
That's
she wouldn't have caught on because she's really sharp, you know.
Now, and I'm just saying though that's a risky thing there too. Though you kind of were either really sure
you had to have had sweaty palms on that one. That was
I had a feeling she would say.
yeah.
So met your wife at Alabama. That'll cure all my Alabama things. That was well worth it going to Alabama for that. So you know. So.
Well, you know, and she did similar things. Sort of similar. She joined the military. I make the joke they don't have a 5-star position, but she was teaching at an elementary school in Jackson, Mississippi, and then just decided she just wanted to do something different, you know. Mm-hmm. And so she came to Alabama. Same reason I joined the Air Force. And so it's, you know, it's not always a big believer in fate, but sometimes it makes you wonder.
I do talk to students a lot that, you know, the minute they walk across the stage to get their diploma in high school, wherever they go, whether it's college or military or whatever, you're going to meet some of the. I didn't know anybody that was in my wedding when I first went off to college, right? And met my wife at college as well. So we never know what's going to be down the road for us like that. That sounds like fate to me. It sounds good. That's a great story.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So go ahead. What was next?
No.
Where'd you go from there after your master's program? You're still serving.
Right. So I was still in the Guard, the Air National Guard, and I had a couple of options, but the main option was, since I left the band in California, the Air Force band out there, they had been trying to fill their arranger position, and I'd been trying to help them. So they would get a submission, you know, an audition package in from somebody, and they would send it to me and say, "What do you think?" And I would say either it's not, you know, maybe the level we need, or hire them, you know. And a couple of times they actually did try to hire somebody who just ended up deciding it wasn't for them, or maybe they couldn't meet the Air Force physical standards for whatever reason. Right. And so after, you know, 2.5 years of being gone, that position was still vacant. And so I asked, "Hey, can I come back?" And they said, "Of course." Normally you would have to re-audition for something like that, but arranging is a little different than playing trumpet, in that if you put it down for 2 years, you know, unless you just literally go brain dead, you don't just forget how to voice a chord for a trumpet section. Right. So I found a way to go back, and that in and of itself would be like a whole podcast, and I would bore everybody to tears. But we'll just say that it literally came down to, since we've discussed football already, I had to be sworn back in by an officer by December 31st of that year, or else I was going to lose some rank, lose a stripe, and have to start over with some rank. Right. We'll save it, all of that. But I will say, the only way I was TAing with the $1 Million Band at Alabama. Yeah. The only way I was able to go with them to the bowl game in Shreveport was because my recruiter had a friend at Barksdale Air Force Base who was an officer. And if they got the call that my paperwork was ready, that officer was going to come over to the football stadium in Shreveport and swear me in. And believe it or not, that's exactly what happened.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And so it was either the night of the game, or we were at the stadium. I don't remember if it was the 30th or the 31st, but it was Saban's first year at Alabama. And they went to they weren't great that year. And they went to whatever bowl game was it Independence Bowl?
Yeah, the Independence Bowl.
Yeah, whatever's in Shreveport. And I stood outside of the stadium after the game. I don't even remember if they won. And this officer showed up, and we have to have a flag backdrop for a swearing in ceremony. And so we went over beside a bus because it had a flag on the side of it. And I did this, and he did his thing, and I became an active duty member again outside the stadium in Shreveport.
That is a great
at about
story.
11 o'clock at night. And I made it without losing a rank or a stripe.
And you got to play in the band. I mean, I've got a good friend from college, another good friend that Greg knows, that his daughter was active in the $1 Million Band in Alabama, and great experience for her as well. Great band, by the way.
Right.
It is a great band.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't playing in the band. I was a graduate assistant
with
the leadership team. But it was so fun to get to do that, because I'd never really had an experience with one of those big, university bands. The band at Tennessee Tech is great and was great, but they aren't, they're not like 400 people.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
And traveling all over the country to
getting on those charter buses and having the police escort. I think all those big teams, their bands travel that way. They have to for security.
Right.
That was kind of fun. Yeah. We don't even do that in the Air Force.
And you have all the security.
We stop at the red lights.
That's right. That's right. Well, people know in the South that, the rival team, they can't stop anywhere. They got to get there because it's not safe. It's just not safe. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's unfortunate, but yeah, it's a safety reason. It's not because we just want to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, there is that too, but it is really the security.
It's very cool. Well, back active duty. That's
right. And so I talked with Christy a lot. We were getting married, or we had just gotten married, and I should say back up to like maybe August before that. We knew we were going to get married, and we knew that somebody got to have a job, and so I brought this up to her and said we could go do this thing, but I didn't, I wanted to make sure she was full in on wanting to be a military spouse, because that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And she was all for it. And moving to California was a piece of it. And so she was for it. And so in January of 2008, we loaded her car up onto a thing that I pulled with my truck, and we drove from Tuscaloosa back to the Bay Area, where I went back to the job that I had a few years earlier, literally the same chair in the same office at the same workstation. So, and so I stayed there from 2008 until mid 2011, and just doing the same kind of thing, writing for all the different ensembles in the band there. And the band there is the same exact model as the band here at Scott.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 60-member unit, one arranger, 2 flutes, 2, all of those things. Right. Similar mission. But from there, I went to San Antonio. And the reason I went to San Antonio is the bands had changed, and some of them who didn't have an arranger position had changed their arranger position. Sorry, let me back up. Some of them who didn't have an arranger on their staff, they had, maybe it was vacant because they couldn't find somebody to fill it. They had changed that position to be, say, another trumpet player spot or something else. So another person on stage, basically. So it had ended up that there were only 2 of us arrangers left in the whole Air Force regional band career field. There were only 2 of us. And so they decided that as long as she and I were fine with it, she being the other arranger, they moved us to a centralized location in San Antonio where we wrote for all the bands around the world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun. It was very interesting. We worked out of what's called Air Force Public Affairs Agency. Mm-hmm. So I was doing band work, but I was not going to work in the building with a band. So there is a band at Lackland, and in fact, Shane is the other arranger's name. Her husband was in the band at Lackland. So we would go over and augment them and do things over there with them, but we weren't assigned to the band there.
Right.
So we did that job from a centralized location, and it was really, really good for my writing skills, because I had to learn more so than in the past how to present a product as a series of PDF files that the band in Germany could go down range and play in Pakistan, and it would sound fine. And I had to know that what I was sending them was going to be right, and there's not going to be wrong notes and screw ups and things like that. So that was really good for me in a lot of ways.
I could hear, I'm not a musician, but I could see how challenging that would be. But it also, it's honing some muscles that you might not have worked, right? Some writing muscles, right?
Yeah, a lot of planning things. I didn't learn more about voicing chords by doing that, but I did learn more about being sure that the product you put out is the product you want to put out.
Right.
And not saying, well, this should be good, and if there's any mistakes, I'll fix it in rehearsal. No, it needs to be right the first time they see it.
Yep.
Yeah, and so I got that improved. After about 5 years there, some things changed, and the regional bands started adding the arranger positions back. And on top of that, AFPA looked like it might be moving to another location from San Antonio, potentially to Baltimore. Mm-hmm. And we couldn't go to Baltimore, mainly because Shane, the other arranger, her husband, remember I said he was in the band over at Lackland. So she's what they call mill to mill. And they need, and the Air Force will generally assign you together. There's nowhere for her to go, for him to go if we move to Baltimore. So the Air Force band program started looking at getting us back to a band. And so in 2016, that's what happened. There was a lot more to it other than just that. Right. But in 2016, I came here to Scott, and I've been here since then. And I will probably finish my career here, but it's a terrific base. We are what you call a MAGCOM headquarters. So Air Mobility Command is based here at Scott, as is U.S. Transportation Command.
Now, where exactly is Scott?
In the state, where is that located near?
We are in southern Illinois. We are about 20 minutes east of St. Louis, Missouri. So just across the water.
Okay.
So for me to get to you in Tullahoma is only like a 4-hour drive.
Right. That's
really nowhere near as far away. And that was another reason we wanted to come here, because
closer
it's,
family,
a 5-hour drive to go visit my folks, and 7 hours for Christy, for us to go down to Pearl, Mississippi, where her folks live. And so it's drivable distance for us.
We were probably just a little west of Effingham and the Mattoon area and all that area. So you're just west of that. Yep.
Yeah. So I live in O'Fallon, Illinois. There's also in O'Fallon, Missouri. We almost made the mistake of enrolling our kids into school there when we were about to move here. So we had to we looked again and we're like, wait, it's the wrong one.
This is a common thing for you. This is the second time in your life that you're in a city that has shared borders.
Right.
Well, this one isn't similar, but this one is the O'Fallon, Missouri is a whole different city.
Oh, okay. So not right on the border.
It's clear on the other side of St. Louis. So it's not one city split in half.
Okay.
It's
never
just
mind.
two. I think it goes back to the same guy who founded both of them. But yeah. Luckily we didn't enroll our kids there and have to pay the fees or whatever.
Well, it's interesting that I was thinking, again, we think about pathways and how you've got into something that has been your full career. And you, like you said, you're going to probably end up retired, maybe retired, end your career there at Scott.
My military one, certainly.
Yeah, right.
We'll say that.
The military career.
Because you can only stay in for so long.
That's right.
And it's going to come to an end sooner or later.
What would you, as we kind of try to start wrapping things up a little bit, what is there anything you would tell your younger self now? Something that you didn't
Sure. Somebody asked me once when I did one of these sort of sessions with a high school band, they asked me to sort of run through a similar thing, and it's a list of a few things. So it's not one thing, but I'll give you the list if you want.
Oh yeah, I'd love it.
But it sort of follows a path. The number one thing is probably, if I had to just say one thing, it is the thing. Number one is to trust your instincts.
Mm-hmm.
If you wake up every day knowing, and you just, all you can think about is band, or all you can think about is being an artist or being a baker or being an accountant, if that's all you can think about every day when you wake up, then that's probably what you're supposed to go do.
Mm-hmm.
And what better way to plan your career than to choose a career based on something you love doing?
Yes,
that's right.
I would do this for free, but don't tell them that.
Nope.
It's only the three of us. Nobody's listening.
Yeah, no one's listening.
I love getting to do what I do. I get to do my hobby as a career.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I have to go do a PT test once a year or twice a year, and I have to do all the military stuff. But I do those things for the privilege of getting to work with these awesome people I work with. And so trust your instincts. Again, and in trusting your instincts, sometimes you take a leap of faith. Right. I had no idea what it was going to be like when I left a stable job teaching in Shelbyville to join the Air Force and move to California. My whole family was like, what? Right. My grandfather, who was a World War II veteran, he just knew that there was some recruiter out there who had been feeding me a lie, and meanwhile, I mean, I knew the Air Force bands were a legitimate, professional career field for musicians. Things are very different than World War II, but trust your instincts. That's number one. Number two is ignore the noise, because there will be noise no matter what you choose. You can be deciding you're going to take over your dad's business because he's retiring, and there's going to be somebody who generates noise about your decision.
Right. Okay.
So in trusting your instincts, do ignore the noise. The noise for me was when I wanted to go study music in college. My family, a lot of people said, you're gonna go broke. You're not, right. You're not gonna have a career if you study music. Who makes a living that way?
Right.
But I was already prepared for the noise because some of your listeners or viewers who might be middle school band students, some of them may have the same experience. I remember bus 19 in Elkton Elementary School, this kid on the bus who made fun of me every day for bringing my trumpet on the bus and being a band nerd. I had already learned to tune him out. So all of this noise, ignore the noise. Okay. But then the next thing, so that's number two. Number three, learn the correct path. There is no instant pill you can take that gives you magical success in any job whatsoever.
Yes.
If you want to be good at something, if you're going to go be a baker, then learn the right path to go be not just a great baker, but someone who knows how to network within the baking community.
Yes.
Right. You've got to learn. Right. You can't just be good at what you do if nobody knows you're doing it.
That's right.
So that's three. Number four, prepare for setbacks because you will have them.
Right.
Okay. I've had them. Either bigger things like career paths or things like, choosing the wrong degree program at Alabama when I should have been in wind conducting and I was in composition by mistake or something like that. Right. It's a whole nother discussion we won't get into. But then you just change your path. You just do a little course correction, as we would say in the Air Force.
Course correction is a key thing. It didn't derail the whole project. It was a course correction. I like that.
Right. And I learned a long time ago too, is to not beat yourself up over things like that, and just say to yourself, well, I tried that and it didn't work, so I'm going to try something else. So there's that. Number five, there's only six, so we're getting close. Take care of the people around you.
Yeah. Be
approachable and be nice and polite.
Yeah.
A lot of the reasons that I've made it to where I am is because I'm not a jerk.
Yeah.
At least I try not to
follow the golden rule. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I work in the Air Force, but I also work a lot in the world of just band music and composers and things like that. And musicians can be some snotty brats. They really can. They can be some egotistical airheads that you just don't want to deal with because they're so narcissistic or they're so egotistical. They're so proud of themselves. You got to get past that. All right. You don't be that person.
Right.
My grandfather would come up out of the ground and get me if I ever acted that way. So in addition to that, take care of the people around you. In the Air Force, we call it mentoring up because we have a chain of command, that goes up and down. And normally you don't think about taking care of the person above you. You think about taking care of the people that you're in charge of. But those people above you, they're people too. And they can have bad days and they can need some counseling or a friend, so take care of the people. And the last part, enjoy the ride.
Right. Because
there's so many times I get to a new place in my career. Putting on this most recent Master Sergeant stripe for me was a big, it was the thing I wanted to do. And that was exciting. But with it comes additional and different responsibilities.
Right.
I'm still writing music, but I've moved from doing one managerial kind of job in our unit to doing maybe some more some
Right.
bigger managerial stuff. And and it's been that way my whole career. And sometimes you stop and you think back to when times were simpler and you had more time to smell the roses.
Right.
And you think, man, I wish I hadn't been so focused on doing the next big thing, so that maybe I could have just enjoyed the thing I was doing at the time.
Right.
So it's all about balance. Enjoy the ride while you are looking ahead.
Those are fantastic.
That's often overlooked. Yeah.
I'm glad we got it recorded. I was going to write them all down.
That's right. Yeah. I'm going to go back.
I mean, it's good stuff.
Yeah, it was good.
Stuff.
I've had to modify it so it's not so, because
Yeah.
I can talk a long time about a lot of things.
No, each one of those is something that we could talk about.
Absolutely.
Anything else you want to leave us with? Man, this has been great.
Yeah. You've given us a lot. Thank you.
Oh, no, I've probably gone on long enough.
No. It's been fantastic.
We're an open forum here. Master Sergeant Martin, we just want to thank you not only for being on this podcast, but we want to more importantly thank you for your service. So thank you for that. I know we've enjoyed our time with you today, so thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. We all appreciate your support, and I look forward to getting a chance to chat some more at some other time.
Awesome. Fantastic. All right, that's been this episode of Two Mics and a Guest. Thank you, buddy.